All right, so we are now in class 3, exercise 7. Class 3, exercise 7. And I've been talking about the stack, right? We're at the top of the stack, we have our application. And within the application, we can have all kinds of bugs and all kinds of security failures, all the way from SQL injections to permission problems to forcing access to hacking um, the session and being able to get access to unauthorized information, get used to different objects. So the application can have multiple vulnerabilities, but it's by no means the only place where there can be vulnerabilities, because below our application lies PHP. The application is written in PHP, so we have PHP below that. Below PHP, we have Apache, and below Apache, we have the operating system, and below the operating system, we have the network and the power and the physical layer. So if somebody takes the power out, takes the network out, or bulldozes the building, you lost your application. So we have operating system, which we're not going to get into, Apache, PHP, application. So we looked at application, we looked at PHP, and now we're looking at Apache. So how do you make Apache more secure? How do you harden Apache? You can use this link here. I don't know if you don't have access to this link, which I don't. You can go to this particular URL, learncisecurity.benchmarks, and just request a document yourself. I pulled it a bit earlier today, and it is a long document of 257 pages of configuration settings for Apache. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but here we'll just look at, for example, permissions and ownership. We've been changing a lot of permissions in files directories, and so ensure that Apache directories and files are owned by root. Apache directories and files are owned by root. This is not the code that you're writing, but the configuration files, the ones that I was messing around with. Ensure that you cannot write to the Apache directories and that access to the directories themselves and the Apache files themselves is restricted. That you cannot look at those even if you break somebody's application. You cannot look at Apache's own configuration, or you cannot look at PHP info, things like that. You cannot see how Apache is configured, all the configuration files for Apache. That's secret. Make sure that Apache runs as non-root. Apache should not be running as root. So if I go right now, I say ps-ef into grep Apache. Let's see if that's true. Sure enough, you notice that Apache is run as a user called www.data, not as root. Yeah, sure, there's one, the granddaddy of them all. The first Apache um, process that starts them all is run as root, but every other process after that is run as www.data, and those are the ones that actually take requests. This first one doesn't. This is more like a supervisor process. So, so that one would be correct. We are ensuring that it's not a non-root user, for example. And this goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, we're going to do only one small thing here in exercise 7. We're going to see if we can leak extra information about how our server or how our application or where our application is living or what other files are available in our application. So in our application right now, we have a file include.php. We have a whole bunch of other files in our application. If we go into var www.html, there's a lot of files there. We don't want everybody to see all those files, let alone try to download them, right? Those would be no. And so right now, um, if I don't put anything in the URL, by default, Apache is configured to and PHP is configured to show me index.html. So if I type in here /index.html, that's exactly what I'm seeing. But what if that file was not there? What would happen? So let's move it away. Let's take it away from there. So move index.html to index dot what do they recommend here? Dot old. So let's just move to old. Okay, so now we don't have index.html because we moved it to a new name. So now the file does not exist. Oh, come on. Don't make me liar. Okay, so we have to do a hard refresh, Command R to refresh, and look what happens all of a sudden. If the index.php is moved away, the default behavior of Apache is to show you everything in that directory. Now, is this a good idea? I would say no, because look at that. We can download the whole application, the web app.zip. We can look at our backup files. And we can even look at include.php files. We can, here's a good one, because I made everything as backup. This is actually a security problem, leaving backup files around like that. Because if I click on that, now I've just downloaded that file. Okay, yeah, let's keep. Download the insecure file, yeah. If I look at this file now, okay, fine. You want to open it with, okay, sure, it doesn't matter. Okay, yes. So now I can see this is something that as a regular user off the street, I didn't have to do anything special. I didn't need any special permissions. I can see all your update statements. I can see all your queries. And if by accident your password is actually in one of these files, then I actually know what your password to your database is. That would be horrible, right? So this is something that we don't want to happen. So we need to tell Apache, hey, never ever under any circumstances show the list of files in a directory. And so that's what's happening here, right? We're seeing all the files underneath. And so we need to say stop it. So there's a configuration file for Apache, just like there's one for PHP that dictates how Apache behaves. And there's a directory setting that says for this directory, var dub show indexes. It automatically indexes the directory so we can see an index of it. And it also allows follow symbolic links. So if I link to this part in the directory, it follows that. We don't want any of that to be happening. And so that's what we're going to change that to no, and then restart Apache and see if now we get this forbidden so we can no longer see the directory. All right. So I'm going to go make an edit to this file. I'm going to do it the same way I've done it up till now. I'm going to, let's see, sudo cp, etc. Apache 2, Apache 2.conf, 2, etc. Apache, Apache 2.backup. I'm just going to make a backup in case I screw up. Excuse me. And then I'm going to, you should not be doing this, because if you look at lsmin, and if you look at the file itself, all these files are owned by root, and they're owned by root, and they're writable by root. Unfortunately, they are readable by the whole world, but you actually have to be a user on the system to see it. So what I'm going to do, though, just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to, this is not something you do in production at all, but sudo chown Kali. Okay, and so now if I look at the files again, notice that they're owned by Kali. Okay, so I'm going to go to my trusty editor here. Let's see, did I just for kicks and chisels, did I turn these things off? That'd be very nice. No, they're still left on. So we're going to say off. I'm going to say off. And let's look at this one too. Let's turn this one off as well, just to clean up after ourselves. But we need to open up a new folder. And the folder we want /etc Apache 2. Okay. So apache2.conf, right? That's the file we're looking at. Yeah, apache2.conf. Okay, that's the configuration file. Again, this is another long, not quite as bad of a configuration file, but it's pretty long. So let's look for -var/www. Okay, and here it is. Right, here's the directory options, allows indexing, and allows the following of symbolic links. So we're going to, well, we're just going to put a comment in front here, and we're going to make a new entry, uncommented version that says options equals none. Right, there's no options, there's no features in that directory that Apache will enable, that Apache will serve, that Apache will give. So we're changing it to this. This also has, this is a complicated one about, which, anyways, you can read about all these attributes. Okay, so now we've made a change here. Whoa, excuse me. We've made a change. We've turned off indexes and follow symlinks. We've saved the file. Now let's restart Apache and see if service Apache to restart. Okay, and now let's go back and see if we still get this list, right? If there's no index.php there, index.php or index.html. Ta-da! So now we have done a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of all the different settings and all the different things that we could be doing to harden and to secure the Apache web server itself. So that's it. That's part of the exercise. Hope that helps. I'm going to stop now. And we'll go to the next one. Thank you.